All right. Thanks everyone for joining. I do have 2:00 here on my time, and I don't see other folks in the waiting room at the moment. John, if you'd like to kick us off.
You bet. Yeah, well, thanks. This is awesome. I'm glad we're able to do this to let folks know kind of what the summer looks like for summer 2023 based on our experience from summer 2022. So kind of the agenda today is I'm going to give a quick overview of what the activities were that the students, the cohort did this past summer. And then we have Julian, who participated this last summer, and he is going to give kind of his perspective from the student's perspective. And then, but definitely want to leave a lot of time for question and answer, whether it's very mundane details about, timing or anything else, or very extravagant details about what does your future look like after you've gone through this program, right? So definitely open for any questions. But I'll go ahead and jump in with I am a faculty member, so my default is like having a presentation, so my apologies on that. But I will share my screen and then start the presentation. Okay, so, this is also from the current webinar a couple weeks ago. So it is an extension-led experience for undergraduates. So a lot of times as an undergraduate student, you have opportunities to maybe do some research. Obviously, you're familiar with the teaching side of universities, but not always familiar with the extension side. And so this team of about, 10 mentors and then 12 project kind of leaders got together and decided that we wanted to provide this opportunity for extension across the region for undergraduates. So we are fortunate to have a lot of different types of expertise on the team. So there's opportunities to work not just in different locations. There's 6 different states that will be part of the cohort this year, but also lots of different types of expertise. There's 10 mentors across 7 states. Like I mentioned, 1 state is not participating this year. And then around, 8 disciplines or areas of expertise. And with that, you kind of get a flavor of what are the challenges in, say, Illinois versus South Dakota. Obviously, climate is different. Cropping patterns are different. The mix of rural and urban is different. And so by interacting with this cohort across the region, you get an idea of what are the challenges that you're going to face working across the region. We do have what we've called a virtual cohort. So not everyone is at the same place, but you're all part of the same cohort. And so you're working together on a regional challenge, and then you're meeting 2 times a week to also do what we're calling skill share sessions. So learning about how to develop an extension program, or how to use technology in K-12 outreach, or how to talk about, controversial topics like climate change with audiences that may or may not be receptive to those types of conversations. So in 2022, we had 9 students in 6 states. We'll probably have something similar this year. We had a few extra in South Dakota, but it'll probably be 6 to 9 students across the 6 states. So the experience, again, it's exposure to regional challenges. You're going to build a network, right, of the students that you're working with in your cohort, as well as those mentors. Hopefully get to know the mentors. And so with that, at the end of the program, ideally, you'll have this kind of network of 20 or so regional, current, and then future water professionals. You'll get a training and extension. And I shouldn't say it's only extension, because there's also a lot of research that goes on in the summer, particularly applied research. And then you develop a portfolio of extension products. So these could be fact sheets or podcast episodes, videos. We've had students that do a booth or an activity at a field day or a training, those types of things. And then I have really emphasized interaction with stakeholders. Most of the mentors, that's been their approach as well, because that's something that people don't necessarily get experience with otherwise. And then hopefully, at the end of the day, an increased understanding of what career opportunities look like in extension or in other types of natural resources or watershed management types of fields. So through the summer, what will you be doing? Like I mentioned, there's a weekly Skillshare meeting where those, so this is targeted training for 10 or 12 different topics. So science communication, developing extension programs, things like that. We do a weekly cohort meeting as well. And so there's a regional challenge that the students work on. And that's what the weekly cohort meeting is about, to develop kind of a plan to address a challenge and then work through solutions for that. And so by the end of the summer, hopefully there's a compilation of products that you're able to use to address that regional challenge. And then 3 state-specific extension products. So again, this could be fact sheet, podcast episode. The students in this picture, this is at a livestock environmental training, and they developed a activity around nitrate and nitrate testing and kind of the impacts of nitrate. And that's what they are doing as one of their state-specific products. And then we also have a peer learning summit where the students get together, and this is an opportunity to interact with each other in person, as well as more professional developments, and then more exposure to some type of water related either activities or technologies in the region. And this last year they did a conference poster. It was really well situated. We had the Climate Intersections Conference that happened this summer in Duluth. That's not a conference that happens every year, so we'll have to figure out what that looks like for this next year, but you'll be able to present in some form or fashion what you're doing during the summer. These are the project mentors. So Iowa State University, University of Missouri, SDSU, we have 2 here. Actually, University of Missouri has 2 as well. Rebecca North, Dr. North is on the call today. Justin Huffam, University of Wisconsin, he's on the call today as well. And then 2 from North Dakota State University, Shinhua Jia and Miranda Meehan. And then Lisa Merrifield at University of Illinois. And she actually has another extension colleague who's a mentor this year as well, which I neglected to add to this, my apologies. And then Dr. Amy Schmidt from University of Nebraska. So I'm just going to quickly go through kind of the types of projects that students worked on. This is a student that worked with me at SDSU, and she worked with soil health and water dynamics under different conservation systems. The top picture is her in the lab. The bottom picture is her at a training with different types of soils from different types of management practices. Piper Siblick from University of Illinois, she worked on work related to rain gardens and kind of getting the word out about green infrastructure. Zach Janish, he's from University of Wisconsin, but worked with me at SDSU and worked with water dynamics under different soil health management practices. So a lot of infiltration testing, understanding how water is influenced at the field scale by different ag practices, and then talking to farmers about that. Boston Bartholomew at NDSU. So he worked kind of in 2 areas, the plants and water values of irrigation. So a lot of irrigation, water quality and quantity and efficiency, as well as riparian grazing. Miranda Hinches worked with nitrates and tile drainage here at SDSU. Julian worked with, well, I'll let Julian talk about that more when he talks. And then Amelia worked here at SDSU as well and looked at wood chips in an aged wood chip bioreactor. And then Izzy Noctegal, University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and was working with soils and carbon sequestration. And so kind of just like, 8 disciplines. So there's a really broad different areas of expertise. And so different states, you're going to be working on kind of a focus on different things, but they all have some flavor that they're all some part of the puzzle with watershed management and how water moves within a watershed. Also, the students went to Duluth presented a poster, and then participated in Peer Learning Summit, where again, they did more professional development activities, as well as presentation exercises and things like that. And then, this was really a good team building activity to get to know your students working across the region. And then I'll just finish with the poster that Miranda presented at we have an internship presentation at SDSU, and kind of her big takeaway for the summer was, a career in extension seemed very likely after this internship. So kind of where she started at the beginning of the summer, didn't know much about extension, didn't know much about watershed management, but when she finished the summer, this was kind of her big takeaway. And so that was very exciting to see. It's a anecdotal or qualitative data point, but it was, I think spoke to the experience that the students had. And so kind of over the 5 years, what you'll be part of at a bigger level, we hope to have 30 to 45 students throughout the 5 years, again, with extension experience and watershed management experience, extension and watershed management interest. You'll have this regional network of both people that have gone through the program, your mentors, as well as an understanding of regional challenges. And so that prepares you to be future water leaders. So I'll stop there. And maybe, not letting me stop share. Anyway, and you can take it back over if you're able to stop my screen sharing. My computer seems to be locked up, but.
No, you're good. It looks like your screen sharing is all done. It looks like
Okay.
maybe you're just frozen on my end. Yeah, I'll put the link. Thanks so much for that, John. I'll put the link to the website for folks in there, which includes a little bit of the information that John mentioned, as well as like the ins and outs of applying, right? The application is due Friday, November 25th. And it's a pretty easy application. It's got the resume, cover letter, and then references. Those are kind of the three buckets for that. All right. Would we like to hear from Julian?
Yeah, Julian, tell us about your experience this summer.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Julian Canaval Rodriguez. I'm a senior in agricultural engineering, lands and water resources at Iowa State. During the summer, I was placed at Iowa State because, I don't know, I love my institution. And I thought the work that my mentor, Catherine DeLong, was doing was really interesting. We worked with the private well stewardship program primarily, encouraging Iowans to regularly test their well water through a grants to counties program that covers all counties in Iowa. I also, my first language is also Spanish. So one of the things that I really focused on in like my work in extension was translating the materials I created in English to Spanish, just to make it more accessible to a larger population in Iowa. Yeah. I feel like that's a pretty like brief like summary of what I did.
That's good. Julian, if I could ask you, what was something that you did this summer or learned this summer that you feel like will kind of help you in your, as you think about careers and things like that, and water resources or watershed management?
Yeah, one of the like really cool opportunities that I had was to go to like not webinars, but like field days and presentations about the Iowa watershed approach. As an agricultural engineer, I learned a lot of like career paths, specifically in engineering firms regarding like flood mitigation, nitrogen management, other stuff like that. But then also, I didn't really know extension as a career path, and that's something that I will continue to look forward, like potentially going down that road if I decide to get a master's later.
Awesome. So I want to we have two other mentors on the call today too. So Dr. North and Dr. Huffam, maybe Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit of kind of what the work that you do, and if a student worked with you, what type of work they would be doing.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a bit different from the rest of the folks in terms of mentorship because I do aquatic ecology. So I study lakes basically, or inland waters, or limnology. And so we have a high school citizen science program here, or community science, where we get local high schools to go out and look for harmful algal blooms year round on the reservoirs. And so last year's summer intern helped with that program. So interfaced with the teacher and the students, and, did a lot of the summer sampling that the students would do because we don't get a lot of volunteers from the high schools during the summer months. So basically, yeah, looking at how to integrate that. And then we use the data that's collected to publish in scientific literature and journals and things like that. So learning more about the community science perspective, and then specifically looking at aquatic ecology.
Awesome, thanks. And then Justin, if you wouldn't mind sharing what working with you would be working with.
You bet. Thanks, John. And good to see you all out there. My name is Justin Huffam. I work at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. However, I'm based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is on the shoreline of Lake Michigan. And the work that I specialize in, and that this role or position would collaborate on with me, surrounds the ideas of education and outreach around Great Lakes watershed literacy. And I have numerous projects across the city and the region here, ranging from green infrastructure to story maps to rain gardens and some other direct service work with young people and community environmental nonprofits that work with watershed issues. Obviously, somebody's can't do all of those things all at once, but for someone that's selected for this position, we would kind of take a look at where skills and interests lie, and where the certain pace or cadence of that work might roll out with community-based partners. So I work with nonprofits, I work with government, and I work with different universities and schools to accomplish that work. So it can go a handful of different directions, and I'm open-minded to see what would be a good fit for that. So
cool. So now I think is an opportunity for any students, if you have any questions, and I know it can be a little intimidating to unmute and ask questions in a Zoom room full of strangers. So you feel free to drop those in the chat, or yeah, you're more than welcome to unmute and ask those as well.
I have a question specifically for Julian. I know that your days probably looked really different on a weekly basis, but just maybe an example, what was an example of one day? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, one thing I learned pretty quick is that there is no like one day in extension. So there's like two very different types of days. One might be when I'm just like working on my computer, more kind of like focused on like writing, researching, learning about my extension project. And then other days might be like a little bit more interactive, like going on a field day somewhere. I'm going to like an extension office, learning about different programs that extension has. One of the things that I was able to do is go to the Mississippi Palisades Park for a forestry conference because I was interested in it. My mentor gave me a lot of like freedom to explore different extension like topics, not necessarily just her area, and I really appreciated that. I hope that answered your question.
It did, thank you.
Other questions?
Hey, I was wondering how a forestry student might be involved in this project. Like, what would they like end up doing, maybe, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, well, and each state is probably going to look a little different in terms of the specific projects. So I would look first at that, at the mentors that are in each state, and then what types of work they're doing. So if you work with Justin, for example, it's going to look a lot different than if you work with Rebecca or with me. So that would be the first place I would start, is thinking about kind of your interest and how they connect with the mentors in each state. And then if you have questions, you know, about someone's research, I would say either reach out to me and I can connect you with that person, or reach out directly to that person. You know, I think that that's definitely on the table, and because we want you to have the best information that you have. But for, I don't know, maybe a more specific answer, so thinking about forestry, there's going to be a lot of commonality related to just hydrology and how water moves in watersheds and land use, land cover, and things like that. And so connecting maybe your background and interest in forested settings or in agroforestry, and thinking about applications to either nutrient movements or hydrology or erosion, really any of those types of topics, you know, I think you can definitely find a connection there. So we try to not really limit it in terms of what majors or backgrounds people had, more so kind of their interest in applications for that. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, hey, I would comment as well that there's a lot of, and it's just one person's opinion, mine, but I think a lot of these experiences can be about method or content area. You know, maybe like the perfect project for somebody in forestry with a certain goal is like content and method match. You know, like you're in some silvicultural application or whatever. But if you can separate those ideas and see it as methodologies, then like what John is saying is spot on the money. You know, I would say the same for me. You know, do you want to learn about how to set up research plots and do these designs and analytics and look at how those reports are cranked out? That's happening in agronomy. That's happening in, you know, by these other project leads as well. It just isn't with trees. But it is like a lot of the same methods, and same with what I offer. You know, education and outreach with stakeholders isn't something I'm doing with forestry today, but you know, 10 years ago it was through, you know, biofuels work, and that's what my REU was doing, was working with a forestry application. So if you and maybe that isn't your goal in the end, maybe you do want a coupled REU that does both, and that's just a personal, you know, a question you'll have to answer for yourselves. But I wouldn't rule out projects just on one of those criteria, you know, because you definitely get a lot of good exposure to research methods through any of these.
Other questions? The old thing that a teacher says is, you know, if you have a question, it's likely that half a dozen other people have the same question too. So you're helping out your colleagues too by thinking of questions, asking them. Ooh, is experience preferred for this internship? That is a wonderful question, Linnea. It's hard to judge. Often it's hard to judge a cover letter, right? Because last year, most of our students were more experienced, but at the same time, we don't want to limit limit someone just because they haven't been in, like, they're younger than someone else, right? That's not really fair. And it's the classic catch-22 of extension experience is required, but how do you get the position to get the experience in the first place? So I think as long as you can sell your strengths and really show the initiative and the ability to learn and fit in and be part of a team and, you know, see it as a growth opportunity, I don't see that as a limitation, I guess. Everyone has to start somewhere. Now, having said that, it is hard to tease out, you know, who is more qualified or more likely to excel in this internship or this REU. It's just very challenging when there's a lot of applications, but yeah.
And I think that's a good point, John. I mean, a lot of extension work is outreach and education. So just think about your experience, not just the stuff that you think of is going to make, oh, like this, you know, we all have like taken a class that we can put on our resume. But, you know, if you've created a podcast, if you're, you know, really good at social media, even for personal use, if you're, you know, created fact sheets for classes or for extracurricular clubs, or you're writing a blog on the side, those are all things that really are transferable skills when it comes to extension. So just don't forget a lot of the good stuff that you guys are doing that could be really great experience for extension work that maybe you don't think about as something that you're doing to build your resume. You're doing it because you like it, which we also want to see too. that comes in handy when you actually like what you're doing too.
Yeah, I second that. What Anne's saying, and John, you know, like, you're the chief ambassador for yourself, and you know how to make the connections best between the life you've lived and the life you want to have. And, you know, you're at a moment in time to reflect on both and make that in your make that case in your cover letter. And you know, you can think outside the box to make that case. You know, I think the most the best preparation I had to be working in extension, honestly, if I were to be honest, was being a RA in college for 3 years. And I don't put that on my cover letter anymore, but man, I'm like, I had to have uncomfortable conversations. I had to learn about people different than me. I had to help people find what they wanted. I had to you know, build trust and rapport. Those are the same things, you know, I do today, and in the topic area specific, you know, academically. But really, like, that's just one example. You could get there a lot of different ways. I'm just trying to say, like, you might not think about something like being an RA would help you be a successful REU, but it would, you know, and you just gotta, like, kind of help the reader make the connection by you know, explaining that.
So I got a direct message question in the chat. And so the question is about whether students apply directly for specific locations or for the general program overall. So within I think within the application itself, you select your preferred locations, and I think it's ranked 1, 2, 3, as well as kind of preferred topic areas or areas of expertise. And so when we select candidates, we will kind of select based on each state. So people that have selected those states, that'll kind of go the first, you know, that batch. So all the South Dakota preference people will come to me first, and, you know, I'll kind of score those initially and then look at the full pool after that, I guess, if that makes sense. So you are more or less applying directly for each state. But yeah, because that's how it ends up getting scored, I guess. Did that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. There's also an opportunity in the application where you can mark if you have a strong preference. So let's say you really want to be in Fargo, and that's the end all be all for you. That's okay. You can note that. It may be that, you know, you're going up against more folks as you're only being considered in North Dakota, for example, to John's point, whereas if you were saying, I'd go anywhere, I'm open to it, then, you know, every state is going to put you in as one of their potential students. So it's really up to you, and you can note that and certainly let us know if you have a very strong preference for a location, or if you're, you know, open to different places and different opportunities, whatever works for you.
I know for me, like when I applied, I could only really do Iowa State because I'm an RA, so I needed to start like earlier, and I talked with my mentor to like start my internship a little bit earlier, so that way like I was able to like finish RA training, move, and also like get everything like done. So do like reach out if you like need to like work with like different start dates or anything.
Yeah, that's totally valid, and I know people can be flexible on either end of it. And my point of encouragement to anybody is to be honest with yourself about it when you apply. You know, it can be, you know, it's like there's name recognition to REUs or some degree of prestige, and it can be easy to see that just as a competition to try to get it. But really be honest with yourself about, you know, are you willing to, you know, are you willing to and have the means and are ready, you know, to go live in Illinois or go live in North Dakota or go, you know, wherever you might be placed. You know, that's only you know that answer. And I mean, I don't know. It would surprise me if there's all that many candidates that could say, yep, I could go anywhere and I could study any topic and be successful, and that's why I'm applying. I would be like, really? You could go to like 8 different states and learn about things ranging from community-based science to agronomy? That's a pretty amazing claim. You know, like we're going to be looking at it like that too, you know? So be honest about who you are and who you want to be. Yeah, you know, like, hey, I want to be in this field, name that specifically, or be honest about your geographic limitation, because that'll ultimately it'll help you be successful if you get it, you know. And it's like that's what you really want. It's not just to get selected, but to be sitting at the end of this in August, having had a successful REU. So.
Other questions?
Will we be living on campus if we were to get the internship, or would we have to find other housing?
That's a good question. So we do have, I'll give 2 answers. One is not answering your question directly, but we do have in the REU like room and boards support stipend as well. And then for the living location, we will work with our host university to make arrangements for you to stay, so you don't have to find. And yeah, there was some question about that on the mentor side last year too, but most of the students ended up either being from the university that they were at, or if they weren't, they stayed on campus. Yeah. I'm doing a really bad job of answering questions today, but anyway.
That's okay. You answered mine.
Okay, great.
I think there's a degree of customization there, and because of our recruitment cycle, I think it gives a bit of time to figure that out with the host institution. So, you know, we're not like telling, you know, people that are selected or awarded this in May that they were, you know, that'll be much earlier than that, and it'll allow this kind of like, okay, does this person, they accepted it, okay, you know, and then you have this criteria and you go work on that lodging thing, or maybe that, like Julian saying, you know, they're already there, so they don't have that question. So there's a bit of embedded time to solve some of these things.
Yeah, good question, Paige. So that is it's 12 weeks. And the start date generally, I mean, kind of the specified start date is May, whatever, 23rd or something like that through August 12 weeks later, 12 weeks later, August 12th or something. But one of the students working with me, she actually got married this summer, and so she started a week or 2 weeks late. Julian had a little bit difference in schedule, so kind of the specified start and end date is what you see on the application page. But again, like if someone has to start 1 week different, we don't want that to be a limitation to your coming. Can current seniors apply? So one requirement is we do want at least 1 semester of school left after you finish. So I guess if you are graduating in May and this would be post-graduation, you're not eligible for that, unfortunately. Sorry about that. But if you have a semester remaining, then you are eligible. Yeah, specific format for submission materials like resume and references. And did we talked, okay, so no specific format, but I don't know, work with, yeah, I mean, a standard resume template, I guess, if there is such a thing. And then references would be, the standard contact information, email, phone number, Twitter handle, just kidding. Yeah, so.
Yeah, we didn't outline a specific format. Any format is fine for both the cover letter, resume, and references. We did outline a few of the questions that we would have that you could include in the cover letter, just as a beginning kind of starting point. Like, what would an ideal watershed management internship experience look like, right? And that'll really help us too. Like Audrey, your question, if you're thinking forestry, like what is an idea from a forestry perspective of what you would be looking for? Because maybe we do have something that's really along those same lines or not. You could kind of note in there what your ideal is, as well as your interests and how you feel like this experience might help you move towards that.
Other questions? Yeah, so next steps, so after all the applications are received, we anonymize the applications. And then again, the kind of primary screening is by state. And so anyone that has indicated an interest in a state or, yeah. So it goes into that state's group. They get scored, and then the selections are made kind of initially based on that. And then all the mentors get together, I think the second week of December, and talk through kind of our top selections. And then it depends on kind of how close the applications are, I guess, or how easy the decisions are. But at that point, it would be connecting with references or phone calls with the applicants, that type of thing. And then the final selections are made for each state, and then the selected applicants are notified sometime in December. And then if they get maybe 2 weeks to decide. If they decide yes, then they're it. If not, then we go to the second choice and third choice and so on. But everything should be wrapped up by the end of January is our target. So January 31st, everyone that has applied should have notification whether they have been selected or not. It does, unfortunately. So graduate students are not eligible for this. I did get several folks email asking about, extension training opportunities for graduate students. And I think there's a need for that. This particular program doesn't allow for that, but if there's interest, I'm trying to compile folks that are interested. So it would be good to reach out, and yeah, feel free to send me a line and just indicate your interest, and I'll try to keep you in the loop for training opportunities and things like that. Any other questions? Seems that we are winding down, but if anyone does have questions, can certainly reach out to me. I think my email is on the application page, and be happy to answer any specific questions or general questions. So there's 10 people here on the call. We had 18, I think, so I hope to see applications from each one of you. Last year was our first year, or this year, I should say, this past summer. So we weren't sure quite how it would go, just how things are. And I'd say of the 5 years I've been at SDSU, it was probably one of the most rewarding summers I've had since being a university faculty. So it was super rewarding from my perspective of getting to see, so students coming in, public speaking is never something that usually not something people jump up and down to go do. And things like talking to farmers at field days, there was a little bit of hesitancy, but we talked through, what are opportunities for that? And the students that worked with me, I had 4 this summer. They did the training at the livestock environmental training. They did multiple field days, and each one, it was really cool to see like more comforts and more, they're growing in this thing of interacting with people and talking to people about water quality and watershed management. And so that was really cool. So yeah, it's not just skills, but it's experiences that I feel like students gain, and it's a cool summer. Okay, last call. Great. Thank you, Julian. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Anne. Thank you to all the students that joined. And again, please reach out. It's a great opportunity, so I'd encourage you all to apply.